Everyone, this is Joe. I am the digital astronomer. I want to welcome you back to my channel. Tonight I'm going to try to do a little bit of planetary imaging. You might notice here that I've got a little bit different setup. This is a Celestron C8SCT. This is an 8-inch. That's an upgrade from the 6-inch that I had been using. I was able to do a little bit of horse trading and worked out a deal to be able to get this, and I'm very excited about it. I've been using it a little bit. I got out the other night, captured a little bit of data on Saturn and Jupiter and the moon, just kind of experimenting. Tonight it's very clear out, but unfortunately we're not going to have the best seeing conditions. Now, I'm a little torn about that because I use two different apps to try to look at the weather. And Clear Dark Skies, which is kind of the one that I find is the most accurate, is saying that the seeing conditions are going to be average to below average. And another app that I use on my phone, which is an Android app, which I forget the name of now, tells me that it's going to be a little better than that. So we'll see. There are some high winds that have been up in the sky. It's supposed to cloud up late tonight. And so, but we're going to give it a shot, and I'll show you what I've got. Let me show you some of the equipment that I'm using. Obviously over here, you can't see it here on video. I guess I could turn this so you can. I have got the Celestron motor focuser on this setup. And then I'm going to be imaging. Oh, this is also mounted on the AVX. And somebody was asking me the other day how this scope is working on the AVX. And the honest answer to that is I don't know. It seemed to work okay the other night. I did a very rough polar alignment just using the polar scope, and then did a quick solar system alignment on Jupiter, and it seemed to work fine, seemed to track okay. I'll let you know as I get to test it out a little bit more. I haven't tried it guiding with it at all yet, so we'll give that a shot, but I think it's going to be okay. All the reviews that I say that this mount should be able to handle this telescope okay. Now, for the camera, I'm using the ZWO-224 MC camera. And this was actually the first astronomy camera that I was able to get. It's a wonderful, wonderful planetary camera, and also not a bad camera if you're wanting to do a little bit of deep sky. I've actually done a little bit of deep sky with it, and it works okay. On the end of it, I've got a little filter here. You probably can barely see it, but I've got this little UV IR cutoff filter that comes from Astronomics. And I find that this thing makes a big difference in planetary imaging. You really need, if you're using the ZW224, you've got to use a UV IR cut filter. And this one from Astromania was only a few dollars, and it's really good. It's worked really well for me. Then I've got, in addition, I've got my 2x TeleVue PowerMate Barlow lens. And this is a very good Barlow lens. It helps make sure you're illuminated across the whole sensor, and of course is going to double the focal length. So this is a 2,500 millimeter focal length telescope native, and this is going to double that out to 5,000 millimeters. So we should get some decent looks at Jupiter and Saturn, and hopefully the seeing conditions won't be so bad and give me some problems. So stick around, and we'll come back as soon as it gets dark. I'll do a quick polar alignment, a quick solar system alignment, and we will get started. Okay, I wanted to go ahead and stack that image real quick. So you can see here, I put it in to auto stacker. I've got a pretty good graph. I was able to stack about 50% of the frames. I just did a quick auto point size thing. Picked 48, went ahead and placed the grid, just let it pick, and then went over to Registacks and did a very, very quick and dirty stretch of the wavelets. this actually looks pretty good. I think I'm in really, really good focus. And so I'm going to go ahead and do a few more captures. I actually you can see I've kind of got this widened way out here. So I'm going to cut this down the region of interest down. I'm going to make this a little bit smaller area. That way I can get the frame rate up even a little bit higher. And we'll do several captures with this. Then I'm going to put the Barlow lens on and we'll see how it goes. Honestly, the Barlow lens might be a problem tonight simply because the seeing is going to deteriorate and I'm not sure how well it's going to go, but we'll give it a try. Let's go ahead and go over. I'm going to do some captures and then I'll put the Barlow lens on and I'll be right back. Okay, I'll show you the capture that I'm setting up here. I've got this set up so that I made the region of interest just a little bit smaller. I went down to, I believe it was 480 by 480. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do 45-second captures. And I'm going to use this little feature in SharpCap where I can perform a sequence of captures. I'm going to do 5 of these with 10 seconds in between each one. That'll give me just a couple seconds to kind of make sure I'm aligned up pretty good. But while I start this, let me make a comment here. I was questioning whether or not the AVX would handle the C8. And honestly, it's doing extremely good. I did a very rough polar alignment, a quick one solar system alignment. I just simply did my alignment on Jupiter. And you can see I'm not getting really any drift here. The planet is staying put in the center of the frame. I'm getting a little bit of bouncing simply because there's a tiny bit of wind here tonight. And of course, again, seeing conditions aren't really that great. But I'm hoping this will work. Honestly, I think this frame rate at 40 seconds might be a tad bit too slow. So what I'm going to do is here in a couple minutes, once I've done these 5, then I'm going to do a whole different set of captures where I increase the gain up just a little bit and take the exposure length down. And then we'll just see how they do. We'll see which one actually stacks a little bit better. You can see here it's pausing now. It finished up that first capture. It's going to wait a couple seconds. It's already done. It started a capture. The next 45-second capture. Let's see how many frames I get total with this. You can see down here it's capturing 1,000 over 1,100 now. Let's see, when it gets to 45 seconds, what am I going to get? I should get pretty close to 1,800 frames, maybe close to 2,000. Okay, so I had about just shy of 1,800 frames there, and it's going to wait, and in 10 seconds, it's going to come back, and it's going to start the next capture. Okay, so I'm going to pause it here. I'll come back in a little bit. I'll show you the next set of capture settings that I'm going to use. Okay, let me show you what I'm doing now here. I've got this next set of 5 sequences that I'm going to take, or captures. I've decreased the exposure time down to 11.9 milliseconds, and I've increased the gain to 125. I still think this is going to give me a pretty good image. You can see it's still, the planet is fairly bright, still looks pretty good. But this gives me now 78 frames per second, which should be much better for Jupiter. In fact, I might even try a third capture using these very settings to try to even get that frame rate up a little bit higher, and we'll test it. We'll see how it goes. So I'm going to go ahead and press start capture, and we're going to do the same 5 things. You'll see one of the things that I'm going to do here real quick is I've changed this target name to Jupiter 2, and that way I'll save these in a little bit different folder, and things should be good. But notice the planet's still sitting there. It's still not moving around a lot. I'm not getting a lot of drift or anything like that. So I'm real happy. I think if I would have done a little bit better polar alignment, this thing would have sat dead center and been perfect. I'm pretty happy with this. So let's go ahead and start this capture, and we'll do 5 captures with these settings, and we'll see how it goes. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and do a third set of captures, third set of 5 captures with these settings. You'll notice I've taken the exposure down to 3.21 milliseconds. I've taken the gain up to, we're going to make it an even 225. Okay, and that's still giving me a pretty good histogram. And then and I've also switched over to the turbo USB, made sure that was on, and now I'm up to 125 frames per second. Now, conceivably, this should give me pretty good results, maybe even better, because my seeing conditions are not very, very good. So that's kind of the philosophy behind this one. Still getting a pretty good histogram. Let me maybe take this up just a tad. Um, Give me a little bit brighter image there. Okay, I think that's going to be good. I'm going to go ahead and start it. We'll do our 5 captures with these settings. All right. Okay, I've switched over to the 2 times Barlow lens, and you can right away see that the seeing conditions are probably too poor for this amount of magnification. Maybe I'll get something okay. I'm going to try to shoot at a number of different settings like I did previously. I'm going to try to start out here. I'm shooting at 51 frames per second, which I'm almost certain will be too slow, but I'm going to give it a shot. I'm also going to go ahead and then try to increase it up, try to get out to around that 100, 120 frames per second and see if I can get some images there. One other thing that I'm going to try is actually switch to another piece of software. I'm going to switch over to Sharp or Fire Capture because there are some tools in there that maybe will help me. So we'll give it a shot here. Let me go ahead and I'm going to center this back up just a little bit. You can see I do have a speck either on the, well, it must be on the camera or on the telescope. I'm not sure which there. I'm going to try to move the planet so it's not so pronounced on there. And I'm going to go ahead and start doing some captures here. So we'll see what happens. Okay, for this next capture of Jupiter, which is going to be Jupiter 5, I'm going to go ahead and change the settings again. I've still got the 2 times Barlow lens on. And what I've done here is gone to a gain of 315, which if Cloudy Nights is accurate, that is unity gain on the 224. Now, I hope that's right. That's what it says on the Cloudy Nights website. That's what I found. I'm also going to go ahead and change this, the exposure setting. I've slowed it down a little bit, or made it faster rather. I'm going to take it to about 6.13 milliseconds, and that is going to give me a frame rate of about 125 frames per second. And again, I'm going to go ahead and capture 5 different captures, 45-second captures with this, and we'll stack them and we'll see how it goes. Okay, so let me start this set of captures, and we'll be back in a minute. Okay, just for fun, I've gone ahead and switched over to fire capture. And I'm going to go ahead and play around with this a little bit and see if I can't do some captures in here. A couple of reasons why is you can go over here into Sharp Cap and you could do a couple of things here. For instance, you could set this, which will do some guiding on your uh, and kind of help center things up a little bit better. And and I'm just going to give it a shot there. So Okay, let me show you what I've got here. You'll see I've got 5 folders here labeled Jupiter 1 through Jupiter 5. Each of these folders contain a number of capture files. For instance, if I open up Jupiter 1, you'll see I've got 6 different folders here. Each of these contain a capture file. This is the kind of file that it contains. It's an SER file with 45 seconds of data captured on Jupiter. Now, each of these different folders have different capture settings. For instance, the first 3 here were all shot at 2500 millimeters focal length. The other 2, Jupiter 4 and Jupiter 5, were shot at 5000 millimeters focal length. Now, the difference between Jupiter 1, 2, and 3, while they were all shot at 2500 millimeters, the difference was in the gain and frames per second settings that I was using. For instance, in Jupiter 1, I was shooting at a gain of 75, and I adjusted the exposure time so that I was getting approximately 50 frames per second. On Jupiter 2, I ended up adjusting the gain up to 125, and the frames per second I increased to 75 frames per second. On Jupiter 3, I increased the gain up to 225 and was able to get my frames per second up to 125 frames per second. Now, what I wanted to do was to do a quick comparison of them. What I wanted to do first is see which of these give me the best data sets. So I took one SER file out of each one of these 3 capture folders, and I did a quick stack in auto stackered, followed by a sharpening in registacks. Now, if you don't know what these are, stick around. I'll show you how to use them in just a few moments. But these were the results. Here is a picture taken at 75 gain at 50 frames per second. Here is an image captured with a gain of 125 or 50 frames per second. And here's one at 225, gain at 125. If I drag these out and just kind of compare them, as I was looking at them a little bit more closely, I think personally that the best of these 3 pictures, or the best of these 3 data sets, is actually this one here. The data that was collected at a gain of 125 and a frame rate of 70 frames per second. I think that gives me the best overall data. Now, you could argue that is a totally subjective thing, but I think in looking at the details and playing around with it, that this gave me the best data. Okay, after taking all 5 of these captures and stacking them in auto stackered, this is the final image. I stacked these individually, adjusted the wavelets, then I de-rotated them in WinJupos. And let me show you the final image. This was the final image that I got. And overall, I am pretty happy with that. That is I'm not saying that's the best Jupiter ever taken, because it's not. I mean, obviously there are a lot of guys that have done far, far better images than that. But that's certainly the best image of Jupiter that I've ever gotten. Let me show you a comparison here real quick. This was probably the best image that I've taken of Jupiter in a similar position with my 6-inch. This is the 6-inch right here on the left. This is the 8-inch on the right. Notice how much brighter, how much more detail there is in the 8-inch telescope. There's really no comparison. And again, this was shot on a night with fairly poor seeing conditions, and the first time out with it, or second time out with it rather. So I'm looking forward. I think that this is a great telescope. and has a lot of potential down the road. So let me go over now. Let me give you a quick review of it, and then we'll finish this thing out. Okay, so let me give you a real quick summary of my first impressions of the Celestron 8SCT. Um, this is basically just an upgrade from the 6-inch that I had before. Right away, you can tell the difference in the amount of light that it collects. Somebody asked me the other day whether it was worth it. It is absolutely worth it. The resolution that you're able to get with the 8SCT is much, much better than the 6. I'm looking forward to getting an opportunity to go out and doing a little deep sky imaging with it. I haven't done any of that yet, haven't had a chance to do it. But for planetary imaging, it has been very, very good. Now, I will say, my guess is that the 8-inch is right at the edge of what the AVX can handle weight wise. I think if you went much above that, you would get in trouble with the guiding. It isn't a problem so far. It tracked very well, even with a very rough polar alignment. I didn't have problems with things drifting out. I did notice that when a train went by my house there the other night, that I did get a little bit more vibration in the mount than normal with the 6-inch. So I'm accounting that to the fact that the telescope's probably a little bit heavier. But overall, this is an excellent planetary imager. I suspect it's going to do quite well on deep sky objects such as galaxies, planetary nebula. I've got a couple things I'm looking forward to trying. I've got a 0.63 focal reducer that I'm going to throw on there soon and do a little bit of imaging with it. I've also got the 0.40 focal reducer, the Night Owl from Starazonia, and I'm looking forward to putting that on there and trying it out with some deep sky. But as a planetary imager, this is a really good setup. It's just at the right weight for me to be able to easily move it in and out of the garage. It's not difficult with that. It works well on my AVX mount. The, the cons on it that I would add is that, as with all Celestron SCTs, the stock focuser is terrible. It is awful. I played around with it a little bit the first night that I had it out trying to focus in. It was terrible. I took it off. I replaced it with the Celestron electronic focuser, which is really easy to fit onto this telescope, no problem at all, and that fixes that. You really do not want to try to do imaging, particularly planetary imaging, with the stock focuser. It's just not going to work for you. It's going to be very difficult. Other than that, the telescope was well packaged. It had all of the parts ready to go. It was clean. Everything was good. And overall, I was very, very happy with it. Very, very satisfied with it. And looking forward to doing a lot more planetary imaging. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope that it gave you some good information. If you haven't subscribed yet, do me a favor, click on subscribe. Also, if you do me a favor and share my channel with your friends and help me spread the word, I am right almost to my goal. My goal for 2021 was to get to 1,000 subscribers. I'm in the mid 800s now. I'm looking forward to topping over that 1,000 mark. And so if you could help me out, I greatly appreciate it. Thank you for tuning in today. Just a quick reminder, if you enjoyed this video, please help support me by clicking on thumbs up and share. Thank you.